UFC welterweight Jack Della Maddalena announced that he has had complications from his arm surgery and will not be able to compete at UFC 305. Of course, the rumor was him, Shavkat, big fight, number one contenders fight potentially. And I think now with this news, this should lead to the fact that Shavkat Rakhmonov should be getting the next welterweight title shot, the winner of Leon Edwards and Bilal Muhammad. And that is what I'm going to talk about in today's video. My name is James Lynch. So again, Della Maddalena coming on here, posting a lengthy thing here. I'm not going to read the entire thing, but he just said, had surgery on my arm 1 week after UFC 299, 10 days after my wound began splitting, which was indicative of an infection, went in for surgery as believed to be an infection. Unfortunately, that means I will not be competing at 305 in Perth, which is a tough pill to swallow. At the moment, I'm focused on recovery. So at the very least, we know that Della Maddalena will not be back. So I can understand if this was something that just delayed it a month or two. This sounds pretty serious. If he can't fight at UFC 305, then Shavkat's going to be out for a while. And to me, that's one of the few fights that makes sense is Jack Della Maddalena and Shavkat Rakhmonov. The only other thing I'll say is if for some reason Kamaru Usman wants to fight at welterweight, I think that's the only fight for Shavkat at this point. But other than that, what does Shavkat need to do in this division? It doesn't make any sense to me. He should be getting the next title shot. In fact, I think at this point with this news, Shavkat should potentially be a backup for the Leon Edwards Bilal Muhammad fight, which we know will be happening at UFC 304 in July. And that's my thoughts on it. Now, I've heard some people critique Shavkat's resume, saying he hasn't fought enough opponents and all this different stuff. The thing that separates Shavkat from a lot of other contenders, because you look, as far as like ranked opponents go, he's defeated Neil Magny, who's ranked, Jeff Neal, who's ranked, Stephen Thompson, who's ranked. People would like maybe 4 ranked opponents or something like that, or 5 ranked opponents to sort of get that marquee title shot. But the difference between Shavkat and a lot of these other guys is he's finishing these fights. Neil Magny. I know Magny's been finished a bunch of times. Still, he finished Magny. That should count for something. Jeff Neal had never been finished in the UFC and still has never been finished other than this fight. And that's a fight that Jeff Neal missed weight in. And Shavkat still went out there, and I know there's a couple times in that fight where he got hit and it didn't look so good, but he still finished Jeff Neal. And he was supposed to, he's supposed to beat him, but to finish Jeff Neal, that counts very much in my books. And then Stephen Thompson. To my knowledge, Stephen Thompson, I think, has only been finished one other time. It was that kind of, hate to call it a fluke, but it kind of was his loss to Anthony Pettis. Other than that, Thompson's a tough guy to finish. You look at some of the guys that he's been in there with. To go and finish Thompson in the second round, I believe that was his first submission loss in the UFC. Let me just double check that. Yeah, first submission loss. Again, these are statement wins. It's not about him just going in there and grinding out a decision or, winning on points. He's going out there and finishing these fights. So that to me has earned Shavkat a title shot. And I think one of the most frustrating things with not only Shavkat, but the welterweight division is we'd like to see more activity. And I think this is a prime opportunity to do that. I do not want to see Shavkat wait any longer to fight Jack Della Maddalena. Look, Jack has certainly earned his spot as well. Jack is again, that Gilbert Burns finish in his last fight. That's the type of win that's going to get you talking about a potential title shot. That's why I think him and Shavkat made a lot of sense. But if Jack's out of this fight, Shavkat should be next in line. And again, the only other fight I could see him maybe doing is Usman. And the only reason I would even suggest that is because if you look at Usman's last fight at welterweight, it was to the champ. And I know Usman's getting up there. And I know there's also the school of thought that, Usman does train at Killcliff still here and there. Shavkat's done some training there. There may be some hesitation on both sides of doing that fight. But I mean, what leverage does Usman have at this point, right? He's lost 3 in a row. And if Usman wants to get a title shot, beating Shavkat would certainly do that at 170. Now, the only other, I could see some other people throwing out some other names like Colby. Honest to God, guys. I want people to look this video, look me in the eye right now in this video, and you tell me, do you think Colby wins that fight? I don't think he wins that fight, but I'm so high on Shavkat that I think Shavkat could beat both Leon Edwards and Bilal Muhammad as well. I think there's a possibility he could do that. I'm not saying it's a guarantee, but that's how high I am on Shavkat Rakhmonov. I think this guy is the future of the division. He's good everywhere, well-rounded skill set, good striking, good grappling, good takedown defense, good, like everything. This guy has shown that he is a title contender in this weight class. And that's why I don't want to see him fight Colby, because I think Colby would lose fairly badly. And, I'm also of the belief that Colby, I think, had an off night against Leon. I don't think he's as bad as he looked in that Leon Edwards fight, but Shavkat would absolutely win that fight. So why would we even do that? So who's next up after that? It would be Gilbert Burns, maybe. Again, I'm not sure. You got Ian Machado, who's fighting Michael Venom Page. I would have actually not minded Ian Machado, Gary, and Shavkat fight, but you can tell the UFC is doing something very strategic with Gary in that they're trying to build him up in a certain way. Him fighting Shavkat, I think Shavkat probably wins that. Then there's Sean Brady. That's another fight that I don't mind, but Brady's ranked number 8, Shavkat number 3. I don't know if Brady necessarily deserves a fight over Shavkat, despite how good he looked against Calvin Gastelum. By the way, Brady also announcing he has a fight booked. I have a feeling it's Gilbert Burns, but we'll wait to see what happens when that comes out. But that's it. Like, who else is he going to fight? And the thing that, like I said, frustrates me about Shavkat, it's not his fault. I'm sure there's a lot of guys who don't want to fight Shavkat. The activity level could be a little bit better. He did fight twice in 2022, fought twice in 2023. He has yet to fight this year, and we're coming up to June. That's too long, in my opinion. I would like to see Shavkat be more active. And I also think if you commit to Shavkat being the next man up, you're getting this division moving. I, like a lot of people, have been very frustrated with Leon Edwards and the UFC and how long it's taken them to book title fights. And I don't know whose fault that is. I still don't know why it took so long to book the Bilal Muhammad fight, but in my opinion, that's a fight that, you know, we need to get this division moving. It's been very slow for a while. And I'd like to see Shavkat, like I said, committed there. So that would be my preference. Either Shavkat's the backup for Leon and Bilal, or they outright give him the winner, bring him into the cage after. Let's get the next one going. That's one of the most frustrating parts about the UFC right now, is they are very slow to book certain fights for whatever reason in certain divisions. So I think Shavkat deserves it. And I'll say it one more time. Like, people saying, oh, he's only got 3 ranked wins. It's the fact that every single one of his fights he's finished. Like, this is a guy that doesn't go the distance. Don't you want to, you know, see a fighter being rewarded for that? I do personally. I don't want to see him waiting around. And, you know, it sucks for Jack. And I think down the line, we will end up getting this fight between Jack and Shavkat. I think it will happen at some point. They're both relatively young here. How old is Shavkat? Shavkat he's 29. I think JDM's maybe a bit younger. I think he's like 27. 27. Buy me a lottery ticket. I can predict these things. So again, there's no rush for Jack to get in this spot either. And you could almost make the same argument. I mean, realistically, if anything, you know, Jack's only got 2 ranked wins. So as far as who deserves it more, like, name me a contender that's more deserving right now at 170. And it's not Joaquin Buckley. He's got 1 ranked win. His last fight, he wasn't ranked. Stephen Taunt, like, yeah. So again, I don't want to see Shavkat and Colby. I'd like to see Colby fight. I think Shavkat Colby makes sense, but I just don't want to see it because I think Shavkat wins that. So what are we doing here? Why are we even going that route? Just give him the title shot at this point. I think he's done more than enough to earn it. You know, again, the UFC keeps going to Abu Dhabi in the Middle East. Shavkat, Muslim fighter. Again, that's very appealing for them. Why get on the ball with this? Let's set this in stone now. You know, if Shavkat's got to wait around for his next fight, I'd rather it be for a title than him, you know, fight Jack or Usman. Like, I don't even know what Usman's doing. I've seen more of Usman's podcast than I have about him training or talking about coming back. So I think we can rule out the Usman fight, if I'm being honest. At the time we're doing this video, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. But Shavkat, give him the next shot. Let's start this movement go. Shavkat for title. Let's start that hashtag. Let's get this going, because I've been wanting to see this guy fight. The issue too with Shavkat as well is that we haven't seen him really challenged in a fight. Yes, Jeff Neal hit him a little bit, but I want to see these fighters, you know, competing at the best. It's like, you know, how we're getting Umar and Corey. How good is Umar? We're going to find out in the Sandhagen fight. How good is Shavkat? Let's see him fight Leon or Bilal. Let's see what happens there. So that's my thoughts on that. So I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. Do you want to see Shavkat get the next title shot? Do you want to see, like, who else would be more deserving, I guess would be my question. Or do you want to see them rebook the fight with JDM? If Shavkat was to fight either Leon or Bilal, who would you pick in that fight? I think Shavkat could beat either of them, but I also could see those fights being close. So I'm not going to commit completely to saying that Shavkat would get it. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @Lynch on Sports. I'm James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.